Attention Minnesota Vikings fans. The news we have today will drive you crazy. Vikings fans are flooding our social networks trying to understand what just happened, and here in this video you will know everything firsthand, so don't leave, don't. Forget to leave your like on the video too, because it helps our community to grow more. And if you are not subscribed yet, subscribe. Because here we always do giveaways with subscribers. Now let's go to today's news. Vikings trade up in the draft and select explosive wide receiver from Maryland. With little draft capital in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings needed to be strategic, and that's exactly what happened. General manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, faced with only 4 total picks, decided not to move in the first round and selected guard Donovan Jackson with the 24th overall pick, bolstering the offensive line. The next selection would only come in the 3rd round, through a compensatory pick granted for the departure of quarterback Kirk Cousins. But that's when the action began. Strategic trade with the Texans yields a new target for McCarthy. With the 97th overall pick, the Vikings reached an agreement with the Houston Texans, trading 2 picks to move up 5 spots and secure an important reinforcement, wide receiver Ty Felton from Maryland. Felton arrives to compete for space in a wide receiver group that could undergo significant changes this season. Who is Ty Felton? Felton is a 6'2" wide receiver who is fast, productive, and has the ideal physique for the NFL. At the Combine, he ran the 40-yard dash in 4.37 seconds and impressed with a 39.5 vertical jump, numbers that highlight his athleticism. In his final college season, he shined with 96 receptions for 1,124 yards and 9 touchdowns. It was the first time he surpassed the 1,000-yard mark, solidifying himself as Maryland's top target. One of the highlights of the campaign came against the Minnesota Golden Gophers, when he totaled 104 receiving yards in yet another performance. Over 100 yards, his 5th of the season. Changes in sight in the Vikings' wide receiver core. The WR1 spot remains firmly in the hands of Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison should continue as the primary partner, although there is uncertainty about his availability, as a suspension seems imminent after legal issues last summer. With that, the Vikings will have to explore alternatives. Jalen Naylor, who occupied the 3rd wide receiver spot in 2024, had reasonable numbers, 414 yards and 6 touchdowns, but faced criticism for his routes and consistency in receptions. In addition, he is entering the final year of his contract. This gap creates space for Felton to enter the rotation early, perhaps even as an immediate replacement during Addison's eventual absence. J.J. McCarthy gets a promising new target for rookie J.J. McCarthy, who arrives as QB1 after being chosen in the 1st round. Developing chemistry with his receivers will be essential. And in Felton, he finds a player with explosiveness, production, and a ceiling for improvement. Minnesota, by the way, has a good history with wide receivers coming from Maryland. The most famous of them is Stephon Diggs, a name that left a deep mark on the franchise. Felton, of course, will have his own journey, but the parallel is still interesting. Still, 2 picks remaining. Even after the trade, the Vikings still have 2 picks remaining, both in the 5th round, to add depth. Elsewhere on the roster, Vikings could still bring back Stephon Gilmore, and there's good reason for that. If the idea sounds familiar, that's because it is. Stephon Gilmore on Vikings could be a smart solution, again. With the 2025 draft now complete and NFL teams making final roster adjustments ahead of training camp, Pro Football Network has once again suggested a well-known signing: Gilmore's return to Minnesota. The veteran, who will turn 35 in September, is still available on the market and has not ruled out a new 1-year contract. A still incomplete defense, and Gilmore's experience in his analysis for PFN, journalist Sterling Sy pointed to the Vikings secondary as one of the team's most vulnerable areas. Even with the return of Byron Murphy Jr., who signed a generous extension, the other names projected as starters, Isaiah Rodgers and Mekhi Blackman, still raise doubts. Flores may struggle to replicate last year's defensive performance, Z wrote. The Vikings' defense looks less robust, especially on the wings. Minnesota, it's worth remembering, didn't pick any cornerbacks in the 2025 draft, which leaves room for veteran reinforcements. And, among the available names, Gilmore remains a the most reliable. Gilmore. Solid. Even at 34 despite his age, Stephon Gilmore showed in 2024 that he can still contribute at a high level. In his season with the Vikings, he allowed just 7.1 yards per target and recorded 9 pass deflections and 1 interception, the latter in a pivotal moment when he intercepted Aaron Rodgers in London against the Jets. His coverage grade from Pro Football Focus was 63.9, and he had just 3 missed tackles all season, his fewest since 2021. In other words, he was not only a respectable veteran, but a true pillar of Brian Flores' defense when it was needed most. Gilmore was hired in 2024 after the tragic death of rookie Kyrie Jackson and the serious injury to Mickey Blackman in the preseason. He quickly assumed a leadership role and was crucial at several points in the campaign. What about retirement? Still waiting. At the start of the offseason, Gilmore himself gave signs that he might hang up his boots, which seemed natural as his 35th birthday approached. However, 4 months have passed, and the veteran has yet to make any official announcement. And in the meantime, he continues training and is open to negotiations, but with a preference for short contracts and competitive situations. Dallas, Baltimore, or Minneapolis again? Gilmore was recently spotted at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility, where he will play in 2023. The visit sparked rumors, which eventually cooled down after the Cowboys selected Stephon Revel Jr. in the draft. Another team, mentioned by C as a possible destination, is the Baltimore Ravens, who despite having one of the most complete rosters in the league, still have doubts in the cornerback sector. A player like Gilmore, with experience in complex schemes and leadership skills, would be an immediate fit in John Harbaugh's rotation. The Dolphins have also been cited as interested, but neither team has made a decision yet. Why this makes sense? For the Vikings, although Minnesota has invested in names like Murphy, Rodgers, Okudah, and McLaughlin, the roster still does not exude total confidence. If any of those players get injured, as Blackman did last year, Gilmore's arrival could provide exactly what the team needs: stability, game intelligence, and a veteran presence. Furthermore, his hiring would not block the development of youngsters, as Z claimed. Instead, he could act as a technical and emotional tutor within the secondary. Other options on the market, should the Vikings choose to go another route. There are still some interesting veterans available. Shaquille Griffin, Mike Hilton, Jack Jones, and Rasul Douglas are free agents, but none have Gilmore's resume or recent consistency. Verdict: keeping the door open is prudent. Gilmore is still a capable starter, even at his advanced age. For a team looking to compete in 2025, bolstering the defense with a proven veteran could be the difference between a promising roster and a truly competitive one. If the Vikings' plan is to continue relying on youth with limited depth, great. But if the goal is security, experience, and a backup plan ready for the unexpected, Stephon Gilmore should be on your radar. Once again,